I'm here at Loigica Business and Immigration Law Firm, right here in the heart of Brickell, Miami. I'm with CEO and co-founder Harry Tapias, answering some of the most commonly asked questions that I see online and from my friends, family, and clients. Harry, thank you so much for having me here today and to answer all of the questions regarding an EB-5 process.
I look forward to answering the questions, and here at Loigica, we love EB-5 and the investors.
Amazing, thank you. Let's get started. First question. For those unfamiliar, what exactly is the EB-5 program and how does it help foreign investors obtain a U.S. green card?
Okay, so the EB-5 program is an investor program designed several decades ago, which allows foreign investors to put their money in our economy here in exchange for permanent residency or that green card. The idea is that by you bringing your money to the United States, the investor, the spouse, and children under 21 will all obtain permanent residency. And when they put that money in, they're not just donating it, they're actually putting it in a loan, so that money will be returned.
Wonderful. Thank you for that explanation. Our next question. What is the current minimum investment required for EB-5 and does it vary by project or location?
Yeah, that's a great question. The law says that the minimum amount for investment is $1,050,000. Now, that's the case for projects located in urban areas like a major city. But there are certain projects that are designated where you can pay a smaller amount at $800,000, and the designation would be for rural or target employment areas. The $800,000 minimum, you have to really go out and search for those projects. You will find more of the urban type projects at the $1,050,000 amount.
A wonderful explanation. Next commonly asked question.
Yeah.
How does real estate fit into EB-5 process? Can somebody simply buy a home and qualify?
Well, many people ask, can I buy a house and call that my EB-5 investment? And the answer is no. The reason is because the investment needs to be put in a pre-qualified project that's going to create employment in the United States. There are regional centers and they're essentially project locations that are designated to be able to receive those funds, and they'll make sure that that money will go to create employment in the United States. That's what this whole program is about creating at least 10 jobs per investor for 2 full years. And so buying your own home will not meet those requirements.
All right, Harry. So now that we know purchasing a home does not qualify for an EB-5, could you please tell us what type of projects do?
So the projects that qualify will typically be associated to a regional center. And what you're going to ask for is for an approved I-956 form. And so this form is what the USCIS or our immigration department provides so that these projects are allowed to receive funds from foreigners in order to be able to provide the benefit of the permanent residency. So what you're going to be looking for are regional centers, and those regional centers will have access to several projects that qualify.
Right, so we have mixed use development towers, we have residential towers, all of that, but that investment doesn't go towards a specific unit, it goes towards the construction of the building.
Yeah, that's a great point. So over the years, we've worked with clients who have invested in, say, hotels, for example. And they're not going to be owners of any one particular hotel room or a condo. Instead, they are providing a loan to the project that will use that money to build the tower or the hotel or whatever it is they're creating, and ensuring that 10 jobs are created. So
Right.
many people ask, by investing, am I owning? You're not owning, you are giving a loan, and that loan is designed to be paid back after several years.
Right. And now let's talk about the return on that loan. So you're putting towards $1,050,000.
Yes.
And do you get anything in return on the money aspect?
Right. Okay. So from a pure financial standpoint, your return is going to be very low. It could be somewhere around 0.5% to maybe perhaps 3% sometimes that you can find. And so what's important here is that you have to look at the return not as how high of an interest rate you can get, but whether you're going to qualify to get the green card. And ultimately, that's the return that you're getting, because the investor, the spouse, and the children under 21 will have this benefit.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you get the green card and then you get your money back, plus a little compound interest to help offset some of the legal and admin fees, right?
Yes, absolutely. Now, that interest is going to be low, so some people get disappointed, but ultimately what you're looking for is getting the money that you invested paid back, making sure that you get those green cards approved, and then having plans for your entire family for the next decade or so.
Lovely. So on this topic then, I think it's good to bring up the gold visa and how it differentiates from an EB-5 visa.
All right. So you're referring to the gold card or President Trump's gold card?
Correct.
Right? And that is a program that is pretty brand new. It started essentially December of 2025, whereas EB-5 has been around for about 30 years or so. The difference is that the person who is giving the $1 million investment in the gold card is actually donating the money. Whereas in EB-5, you're loaning the money. And the difference between a donation and a loan is that you're not going to get the money back in a donation.
Yeah.
The other main difference is that the gold card provides a permanent residency for one person.
Mm-hmm.
So $1 million gives one person permanent residency, whereas $1,050,000 as a loan not only gives the investor the green card or the permanent residency, but also provides it to the spouse and children under 21.
So their immediate family.
So their immediate family gets it. So imagine if you're a family of 5 and you go to the gold card, you're going to have to invest $5 million.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you for that explanation. Let's go on to our next commonly asked question.
Yeah.
What are the major steps in the EB-5 application process and how long does it typically take?
Okay, so from the individual standpoint, they're going to file a form with the government using their attorneys demonstrating that the investment was completed, the $1,050,000 was invested, or the $800,000 if they qualified for a TEA or rural project. That will be accompanied with information supporting that project will be able to create these 10 jobs. The attorney will also work to make sure that the source of funds and the path of funds are clear. And what that means essentially is that as attorneys, we have to show that the money came from lawful sources and that it took a lawful path to be able, in the way into the United States. So the government wants to make sure that we're not supporting any type of illegal, behavior, from terrorists to drugs, et cetera, right? So that's a really big part of our job. Once we have all these documents and evidence put together, we'll write a cover letter explaining why the individual qualifies, and we're going to be requesting, if possible, an adjustment of status for the entire family at that point. Once we file it, the government tends to respond in just a couple of months.
Okay, and then that's how you essentially get a green card?
Right. And so presuming that the entire family is already inside the United States and they're inside lawfully, perhaps they're here as tourists, or maybe they're here under student visas or some other lawful visa, then we can request an adjustment of status, which means that once we file, they don't have to leave the United States to get the green card. They're just going to obtain it while they're living their lives in the United States.
Okay, understood. And so, Harry, tell us, please, how important is it to invest in the correct project? Because if you're in the middle of your visa process and then the project gets canceled, what would happen to the green card?
Well, for a project to get canceled, it's going to be something catastrophic. Essentially, for a project to even qualify to be able to accept EB-5 funds, they needed to have been vetted by the USCIS. So it's very unlikely that it's going to all of a sudden be canceled or be unable to accept EB-5 funds. Instead, like any investment that one is going to make, you need to analyze the financials of the project.
This is where a good realtor comes in.
A good realtor comes in, a good accountant, and I think those two people are really important. The immigration attorney is not guaranteeing that the investment is safe. What the immigration attorney is guaranteeing is that the petition is going to be filed in a professional way, right? But whether the project fails or not, it's going to be completely dependent on the financials. So talk to your real estate agent, talk to your accountants to review how strong the finances is for the project. Now, that being said, because EB-5 has been around for over 3 decades, they tend to be pretty safe, most of them. So what you really are looking for is, how well structured is this project? Where does it have funding from? Is it just all EB-5 or is it backed by banks? You're going to want to ask those questions. You want to ask, what's the likelihood that the project will be able to fulfill the 10 jobs for your investment? And many of them will have those answers very clear and available to you. So you're going to be really just looking at the details, but work with professionals to get those answers.
Yeah, there's many projects with reputable developers that the government is already very familiar with. They have their own funding. So You just have to pick the right project.
And I do want to share, Milena, also that like many people hear about the one or two bad EB-5 projects that may have existed over time. And so those are the ones that are most noteworthy, but no one ever talks about the vast majority of successful projects that exist. Definitely study and properly pick your project, but feel that the EB-5 system has been designed to really attract foreign funds so that they can make America great.
Yeah. So in your experience, what are some of the most common mistakes that you see folks make in the EB-5 process?
Some of the mistakes that I've seen, or things that could become mistakes, are where they don't have all the funds to invest. Mm-hmm. So some will ask, well, instead of making the entire investment, can I just make an initial investment, file for my EB-5 and green card, and then pay it later in time? While the answer is possibly yes, it really could set you up for failure if you don't end up paying the full amount, whether it's $1,050,000 or the $800,000. Some people sometimes have to do that because they don't have all the funds, but then they're risking not having enough funds later in time to actually fulfill the minimum investment. So that's something that I would like to clients to really turn away from, and really just come once you're prepared with the funds. Other problems that could happen is that they may be here as tourists, and when they arrive as tourists, they have a maximum of 6 months to stay. Mm-hmm. And some of them may wait until month 5 then to decide that they want to invest in EB-5, and then that puts a lot of pressure for the attorney to file the EB-5 before those 6 month period expires. Mm-hmm. So our job is to make sure that the EB-5 gets filed before the expiration date, and if the petition is mailed 1 day late, or if FedEx delivers late, the person could be here unlawfully present. So ideally, they're really planning this well ahead of time. Okay,
so have liquid funds and don't wait 6 months to apply.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, so they're top 2 rules that we need to keep in mind. So aside from a green card, what are the biggest benefits of pursuing an EB-5?
The green card ultimately is the reason that you're doing this, because you want permanent residency in the United States. But that permanent residency also comes with great other benefits, which are the children can go to school without having to ask for a student visa. The parents can as well. Everyone can work legally in the United States. Mm-hmm. Further, after 5 years of presence in the United States, now they're eligible to become U.S. citizens. And in the U.S., you're permitted to have multiple citizenships. So if you're Canadian and you want to be a U.S. citizen, you will be on that path so long as you're present here for 5 years. And it really is just feeling that your money was used to make America's economy stronger. I think it's something to be very proud of. And in addition, you're going to get an interest return on that money. So you have to look at all these things. You can certainly consider, well, I could put the money in the stocks, in the S&P 500 or some other portfolio, but you're not going to obtain permanent residency.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that one-time $1 million investment will essentially get you and your family a green card, and then you can use the same funds to purchase a home for you and your family.
Absolutely. The timing of that is important, though, because when you put this money in that loan, you are putting it away for a few years. Okay. So don't count on having it immediately, but you will get it back. So once you get the money back, as you explained, then you have it available to start a business, to buy another home, and you can certainly plan that way.
That's wonderful. Awesome. Our next question, has the EB-5 program changed recently, and what should investors know in 2026?
There hasn't been many changes recently, but the EB-5 Reform Act in, I think it was 2021 or 2022, added additional protections for EB-5 investors, so that if a project did go under, that investor could find a way to still obtain permanent residency. But that's why it's really important, even with that added protection from a few years ago, to really analyze the financials of each project. The great thing about EB-5 is that there is consistency in the program. What you want is to be able to choose a visa that has been around for a long time. And that's why those people who are considering investing or investing in the gold card should realize that this is a means to permanent residency that is brand new, and we don't know if it's going to change later. Mm-hmm. But we know that the EB-5 program has been around for a long time, and we can predict how it will behave in the future, which will be very much as in the past.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, 30 years of consistent, successful applications.
And also a good track record. Consistent rules and regulations.
Regulations,
And,
yeah.
while there has been some improvements in the regulations, overall, it's the same law from a long time ago.
Right.
So as lawyers, we want to be able to rely on consistency. And so
For
while
sure.
I'd certainly want to help a gold card investor, I will want him to consider EB-5 as well, because there may be greater benefits there.
Absolutely. I agree. How safe is the EB-5 path compared to other visas?
Well, the EB-5 program is a very consistent program so long as one has the funds to invest. There's other categories of the EBs. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And EB-5, I would say, is the darling of the USCIS, because it's the way that we're able to, or the United States is able to attract funds from other countries. So the United States government certainly wants this to be successful. Now, of course, if you're a person who's famous or has extraordinary abilities, you can also look at other types of visas as well. But the EB-5 is very objective. If you have the funds to invest, the $1,050,000 or the $800,000, and you can invest it now, it's a very objective and clear path to obtain permanent residency. Whereas if you're presenting a case of showing that you are a person of extraordinary abilities, it can be subjective. I would have to then prove that you're special, whereas proving that you're rich is much easier.
We love that.
Right.
So with an EB-5 investment, can investors and their family live anywhere in the USA, or are they tied to the project location?
Well, in the United States, once you're in one state, you can live anywhere. And so there is no boundaries between the states. So if your investment is in Alaska, we're not going to force you to live in Alaska. You can live in New York. You can live in California. You can live in New York, in Florida, anywhere that you want to live. So your location of where you want to live doesn't have to follow your money. What you want to make sure is that your money is properly invested, but you can choose any cool town in the United States that you want to live. From San Juan, Puerto Rico, to Beverly Hills, to Miami, to New York. And
pick Miami every time. I'm just joking.
Absolutely.
We're very biased, only because we're here. Yes. If someone watching today wants to start the EB-5 process, what's the very first step that they should take?
The first step is, I would say that they should start speaking to an immigration attorney so they understand how the process works. Many times people will come to us and say, I haven't found a project yet. I say, it doesn't really matter. So we first want to figure out your path of funds and source of funds. How are you bringing this money? How are you getting it here? Or how did you already do that? And then in the meantime, you also want to start talking to your real estate agents or your financial advisors to help you start selecting projects. Many times people ask me if there's projects that I like, and it doesn't really matter which ones I like. What matters is that whether they qualify to receive your EB-5 funds. So I would say, speak to a professional like Milena who can guide you in selecting those different types of projects.
Wonderful. Thank you. Harry, thank you so much. I think we've answered all the top questions that I've recently been receiving. And guys, if anybody wants to start their process and immigration in the United States, contact myself or Harry, and we're always here to help guide you and answer any further questions you have. So comment below. Let us know how we can help.
Thank you, Milena.
Thank you,
This
Harry.
was really fun.